Morning, everyone. Welcome to the fifth session in our path to a perfect 10. My name's Gab Davis. Still, I'm an admin of all things, especially complicated things. I've been working with IBM technology since the early 90s, and I work with design and deployment technology. So, if you're planning to upgrade, this is to help you upgrade. This is what I do. So we're coming to the end of our first module, which is Are we ready? Making sure our environment is ready for us to upgrade. And at the end, we're now looking at how to identify performance issues. So it's almost certain many of you are going to be upgrading onto existing hardware. Assuming the system requirements for version 10 are met by existing hardware, you're probably going to do an in-place upgrade. So if that's the case, you're going to want to identify and hopefully fix any performance issues in advance. You want a solid, reliable environment to upgrade onto, which means fixing any problems or at least documenting any problems. There are a lot of reporting tools available natively in Domino, also in Sametime and Traveller you can use. This session was going way beyond my planned 15 minutes, so this one is just going to be Domino, and my next session I'm going to look at Sametime, iNotes, Traveller versus on-premise performance monitoring. So let's start with event monitoring. So event monitoring is designed on a Domino server to track problems with task-based events. Events are created in the events4.nsf database. That database will be replicated around your environment without you doing anything. Every time you build a new server and you say it's part of your existing domain, that events4.nsf database is actually pulled from the server you set up from. So every server in your domain should have the same events4.nsf. If it doesn't, then someone's manually done something and something's gone wrong. They should all share the same replica. So this is an example of creating a new event. And I can say, do I want this event notified just on this server or on every server in the domain? And I'm going to say I want it to match a specific criteria. So I want to generate an event. And what I can do is alerts can be triggered by severity or actual error. So in the screenshot below, I'm saying any events that record as failure or fatal that are generated by the agent manager, I want to trigger an event alert. So I could have actually given it a specific message at the bottom there. You see, event must have text in the event message. So if you know there's an error you're particularly looking for, you could trigger an event on that instead of any failure or fatal error. And the really nice thing about events is they have a whole bunch of different alerting methods you can use. Anything from logging to event viewer, logging to a database, SNMP trap, sending an email, generating agents. There's a lot of alerting you can do, and you can also limit when this event monitor runs. So if you know you're doing maintenance at certain times and you don't want it to trigger alerts during that time because you know the server is doing certain things, then you can actually limit the event monitoring just within the window that you want to use it for. So this is a 2-hour session I'm compressing into 15 minutes. You'll notice I'm going very fast here. Next, working with Domino statistics. So Domino statistics also in events4.nsf. Domino creates thousands of statistics. If you go to Domino Administrator, click on the server and then the statistics tab, you can see them all there. You can expand them there. You can also right mouse click on that top level. It says 2,172 statistics. I can copy and I can paste the whole lot into a spreadsheet if I wanted to. Domino 10 is going to be able to publish statistics out to New Relic, newrelic.com, which actually does statistics analysis. So you'll be able to publish directly from Domino to a New Relic server and then use New Relic to actually do the analysis on statistics and performance. But right now we use events4.nsf to set up statistic thresholds. And what that does is that can generate alerts for any statistical outliers. So I can generate an alert if my disk space drops below 20%. I can generate an alert if my available memory trips above a certain level. So in events4.nsf, this is a statistic event generator. So you can see I'm saying every server in the domain, I want to form a platform logical disk percent util. So what that's saying is I want to know the percentage of time that a logical disk is busy. Domino cares about this activity, it cares about I/O. So if we've got a busy disk, then that's affecting our performance. So I might generate a statistic and say, and then on the threshold tab, it says generate the event, and the event is how far we're moving from the threshold value. So I might say the statistic is less or the statistic is more. So in this case, I'm saying if the read-write time is longer than I want in my threshold, then I want it to generate a statistic alert. And obviously you can go really deep into this. What you want to do is use events and DDM, which we're going to talk about, to get an idea of where you may have problems, and then use statistic thresholds to track those specific problems. So then we have DDM, Domino Domain Monitoring. DDM is present on every Domino server, version 7 or later. It doesn't require a dedicated server task, there's nothing to run for it. Each server reports its errors into its own ddm.nsf database. You can group server activities to a single ddm.nsf on a cluster collection server. Now, the reason you might do that is if I've got 10 servers, I might not want to open 10 ddm.nsfs on every single server and have a look at every single server's reporting. What I can do is I can create a collection which says every server sends their reports up to this one. It's actually controlled by a replication selection formula in ddm.nsf, and by creating a collection hierarchy, Domino changes that selection formula so everything is replicated to one place. So it's nice. What I often do, oh, I'll get to that in a second. DDM ships a pre-configured probe to help you monitor and track server problems. The probes also do two other things. They tell you how often this problem has occurred, and that's really important. So if I see, okay, so this problem has occurred, but it's occurred once in the last month, then that's a very big difference from a problem that's occurred 22,000 times in the last 3 weeks. What the problem is also able to do, as well as consolidating repeats of the same problem, so you just see it once, it will also provide advice on what the problem cause can be and how to resolve it. So this is collection hierarchy that I was talking about. This is all configured again in events4.nsf. So whether you're configuring event monitoring, statistic thresholds, or DDM probes, it's all done in events4.nsf, which is why it's so important that database is replicated to every server, shares the same replica ID. If you open DDMSF on each server, you can see any problems, including many console errors. So even if you don't configure any DDM probes, any errors you see on the console will actually be logged to ddm.nsf. So I can see these are open problems categorized by failure or warning. And under failure, they've been categorized into operating system disk, security access, application code. So some of these things, under operating system disk, for example, what will be logged is someone not being able to get their ID out of the vault. That's often logged as a disk problem as well as actual disk problems. So some things are more important for you to fix than others. Some things are a side effect of your configuration. But by monitoring DDM, and I try and keep an eye on this weekly, takes me 30 minutes just to open it and have a look at if there are any major problems, which I then need to address. That should be part of your maintenance. So create a collection, again, events.nsf. You could group servers together. So you can see their server collection hierarchy. If I click on that, it asks me what is my collecting server and then all the servers it's collecting from. So what I often do is I group things together so they're in logical groups. If I want to have a look at, do I have any mail problems? I want to group all the mail servers together. Then I can see a whole history of, okay, this server is having a problem routing mail, which is why this server is backing up mail. I can see all those things together. So it makes sense to create a collection hierarchy to group those servers together. It makes sense to create a collection hierarchy to group application servers together, especially if they have the same applications, because then I'm seeing the same errors on multiple servers. I can see them all in one place. So I don't tend to put all servers in one giant DDM bucket unless it's a very small environment, but I do group servers by the role they're doing, which makes it easy for me to go, okay, I'm now going to have a look if we've got any application problems, or I'm now going to have a look and see if we've got any mail routing problems. So these are examples of some probes, and This is purely directory probes because I wanted to show you the kind of things that are pre-set up. So we have things like directory availability, directory catalog creation, LDAP process state. So there are probes here that will monitor, for example, if LDAP is even running, but there are processes that will monitor. This one is called name lookup search response, and I use this quite a lot. And what that is how fast the server responds to me doing a name lookup. As I create a new email and I start to type Tim, as soon as I start typing, the server's going to start doing a lookup. The speed at which the server can do a lookup to the directories and return me a response, that's your name lookup search response. So if that's getting slow, if for whatever reason, if your directory access and lookups are slow, and usually that's something to do with directory assistance, maybe you've got a remote directory configured or an LDAP directory and there's a performance issue, that directly impacts client experience. What the client sees, what the user sees, is they create a new email and they go to do type ahead and it takes forever for it to come up with suggestions. So name lookup search response is a really good probe, especially if you have multiple directories. Other probes I like, and I don't tend to leave them on all the time. I put them on firstly if I'm doing a health check, and secondly if we're deploying new apps. So there are application code probes for agents, and there are ones for Agent Manager as well as HTTP. And we can evaluate agents by CPU, by memory usage, and agents that are falling behind schedule because someone's scheduled a whole bunch of agents on top of each other and they're tripping over each other. So one of the nice things I can say on my probe is I just want this applied to agent manager agents, and I want to know, and I want you to log a fatal error if the memory utilization goes to very high. Now, what is very high? So very high is something that's a statistic that's created by IBM in terms of what it considers acceptable memory utilization. So I don't tend to play those statistics. Um, so that's Agent Manager. I can configure it for agents and HTTP. I find it useful if developers deploy new apps. They will have tested them. They would have tested them in their development environment. They would have tested them in production or live, which is the issue. When it goes live, I suddenly need to see if these agents that were written are going to cause me problems. So these are very good to turn on when you're doing maintenance, if you're doing a health check, and if you're rolling out new apps. But I don't tend to leave them on all the time. That's overkill as far as I'm concerned. So the final thing I want to just talk about is the Domino Configuration Tuner. This is an analysis tool based on a set of pre-configured best practice, worst practice rules that IBM ship and update. It makes recommendations on configuration changes to enhance performance and security. So it scans server documents, it scans notes INI, it scans advanced database properties like ODS and full text indexing, and it's intended to scan servers in a single domain. So it can scan any servers in your domain. You can actually get it to scan servers in different domains, but we're not going to talk about that here. So to run DCT, I open dct.nsf, which is created with a template, dct.ntf, and I choose my service I want to scan, and I scan. And what I will get is I will get a report. This report showing all services showing 9 critical errors, 2.2% critical, 47 high warning of 11.7%, and 82 low warning of 20%, and 66% normal. So that's not bad, but I think it's important to understand what the low and high warnings are in case there are things you need to fix. So this gives me a list of all the rules that are evaluated, like the ODS version being as high as possible, whether you have compressed database design to reduce I/O demands, generic configuration document rule, there should be no duplicate entries in the parameters section of the configuration document. So it checks lots of rules. You can disable some of these rules if you want to. Again, we're not covering that here. So that's DCT. There's lots to look at in DCT. It will give you advice pre-upgrade on what you should be looking at. It might say you need to be moving the ODS. So finally, I know the other one's finally, this one is finally, enhanced fault reporting. So there's a fault reporting database called LNDFR. We all know Domino server crashes, it creates an NST. Most people can't read or analyze an NST. We just rely it to clean up and then off we go again. but clients can also generate NSDs. The nice thing about the new enhanced fault reporting is that when NSDs are mailed into the database, they are analysed and then they are created in a by disposition view that shows problems, possibly actionable problems, problems that are likely not actionable, informational, and unknown. So it categorizes and it shows you the NSD. Now, why is this good? This is good for client fault reporting, I find. So I can configure a desktop policy to have crash files from the client sent to and analysed on the server. Why is this nice? Because clients don't tell you if they notice client crashes. They tend to just ignore it, relaunch, and go on. They certainly don't bother sending you the NSD. The problem is what they then get is they just get annoyed that the client isn't stable. Meanwhile, we can get a lot of crashes generated from deploying a new virus protection tool or changing the desktop environment. Something can cause a pattern of client crashes, but if you don't know about it, you won't see it and there's no way to track it. So if we have these NSDs mailed into the fault reporting database, then they categorize and I can say, oh, this department over here, I deployed an updated version of this virus protection tool, and now everyone's getting crashes. And that's going to be very visible to you. It'll also say things like client crash the server themselves. So it will actually show if it was a forced user cache because the user got impatient with notes or whatever and just crashed it out of the task manager, which is also good to know. The one thing I'd say, if you look at this, there's that second option there, prompt user to send diagnostic report, and it says yes. And prompt user for comments, yes, don't do those. Nothing is more annoying to users after they notice client crashes when they relaunch it if you won't let them in until they explain what happened. It seems like a good idea. In my experience, users get incredibly annoyed by it. So that's client fault reporting. It will give you a really good idea of the health of your environment if you have any problems you're not aware of. If you enable that on a desktop policy and get it to mail in and analyze if you're getting any crashes. It's also quite nice to know if you're not getting any crashes. So where are we? At this point, you should be aware of any performance issues that need resolving before you upgrade in terms of Domino. You should be able to start fixing those issues or at minimum document them as existing prior to the upgrade. You could be considering setting up a new Relic account ready to test the new statistics reporting functionality when it arrives. You can start looking at that at any time. You should also have processes in place to alert you to any performance issues as part of your standard maintenance. The DDM probes I was talking about, statistic thresholds, just things that allow you to see if you're going to have an issue in your environment. So that's us for performance and health for Domino. Next up, we're going to look at performance problems for Sametime, iNotes, Verse On-Premise, and Traveller. And after that, what to upgrade and how to decide priorities. Thank you for joining me for this Perfect 10 session. I will see you soon.